Hello everyone! In the previous video we covered the basics of App Builder and now it is time to dive in and write some code. App Builder development is quite different from what we are used to in Adobe Commerce, so don't feel overwhelmed. We will be working entirely in JavaScript or TypeScript, which might feel new. But as the IT market continues to shift toward Node.js, the skills you learn here can be applied to other frameworks and projects. So today we'll create a custom action that fetches product data from an Adobe Commerce instance based on an SKU parameter. Then we will extend our single page application with a new view that includes a simple input field for the SKU. And by clicking a fetch product button, we'll load the data using the custom action. So let's get started. Alright, let's start with the Postman application and let's create here a request so we can actually describe how we want to send the request to our custom action. So in the previous videos we already created a collection in Postman and sample request to get access token from the OAuth server and also to request the generic runtime action. So we'll reuse it, of course. So here let's just copy the generic request. So let's name it commerce. And also the URL also will be changed to commerce. So our custom action, runtime action will be actually named commerce. We need to send the SKU of a product, right? So we send a post request to this URL for this custom action, and we need to select like a row and JSON format. And here we define, let's say, SKU, and here there will be some sample SKU. So later we will of course change it. And just to remind you, here is the get access token request. So here we will get the access token. We need to select of course the credential in Codexpect stage. So here we have all the necessary environment variables for the OAuth server. So here we take this, we send this request, we have access token, and this access token needs to be pasted into authorization into the collection. So here we paste this token. And then if you want to, for example, send request to this commerce, we can select our stage. For localhost, we don't need it, but for stage, yeah, we need this access token. So if you want to test it, you need to do it this way. All right, so this is set up. Let's now go to our terminal and let's create a new commerce action. To add a new custom action to our App Builders project, we will use AIO CLI. And how to do it? Simply by using AIO app add. And here we provide a resource name, so in our case this will be action, and we will need to use a template for our action. So we can just select all action templates, and here we will only see there is like this add publish events, and it's not visible in this list right now, but if you press the arrow down, you'll actually see a second option, a second template, a generator add action generics. So this is the one that we are interested in because this is the generic action. This will be the boilerplate for our generic action that we actually seen in previous videos, right? So you want to select just this one, and yeah, we can just confirm it. We'll need to wait for a couple of seconds until the installing process is finished. And now we need to define the name for our action. So it will be commerce. And that's actually it. And here is a summary of what has been created. So as you can see that there was a change in package.json in app.config.yam, there was a new index.js file created in the actions directory, and also a test were added to our end-to-end and also test directory. So let's see it in our WebStorm project. Alright, so as you can see, we are right now in the package.json. So here we have some new changes to it. But what is interesting for us is the app.config.yam file, and here we have a new configuration added automatically by this AIO CLI. So here there is the commerce action configured with the default basically configurations, and here is the action file. So if we go right now to actions commerce index.js, here is a boilerplate for our custom generic runtime action. Alright, and here we have the main function. At the top of this function we have some logger configurations. So depending on the log level, we will see actually different kind of informations in our logs. So here what is interesting, and we'll actually use it later, is this logger debug, and actually all the params will be logged into our terminal, so we'll see what was passed by the request. And also actually this params object contains also environment variables that we define in our app.config.yaml and in the env file, but here we have also access to the data that were passed to our request in a body.json, for example. So we will see it in action later. Then we define the required params and required headers. So here we have the validation and boilerplate also for making this validation in the check missing request input. So here we, for example, need the SKU, right? So there is no point of fetching any data if we do not have SKU. So we will simply define that our required param will be SKU. And then we have some boilerplate code to get data from the Adobe I/O Runtime and API. So actually we don't need it. So let's just remove that. And yeah, let's just hello world here. And here we will fetch data from Adobe Commerce. So here we need to actually write the code to do it. And we can do it by ourselves, of course, but I mentioned in my, I believe, first video about App Builder that Adobe also created Adobe Commerce Integration Starter Kit, which actually already covers a lot of use cases to fetch data from Adobe Commerce, fetch data from like maybe connect to other services, Adobe services. So actually, to not reinvent the wheel again, we will actually use this code from the integration starter kit right now. So let's go to our browser, and here we have the Adobe Commerce Integration Starter Kit, and we are interested in the getting a client for our Adobe Commerce API. So here if you go to Actions, and here there is a file called OAuth1A. So here we have the code that is helping us to actually create OAuth client, and then just by simply using the post, put, or delete, or get request to fetch the data from our Adobe Commerce instance. So we will just copy this file. As you can see, there's a lot of code, and why not just reuse it, of course. So let's copy the name, and also we will fetch the raw data. So yeah, let's go here and let's go and create a new OAuth.js file in our actions directory, and then let's just copy this code here. Alright, so we are interested in the get commerce OAuth client. This will be the function that we will use in our index.js, but let's see what we've got here. So we define for the get commerce OAuth client, we need to pass options and also a logger. And options, this will be like URL of our Adobe Commerce and also tokens for our integration. So if we go to get OAuth client, here is basically the code that is responsible for making a client and also sending requests to get the access token for this server and so on. So yeah, you can check it out. But basically here, once we get the instance, the client, we can basically use this get and other requests by just simply specifying the resource URL, and then the API call by using this API call actual function will make the necessary requests. And we actually need to install OAuth, this package, and also the God package. So those two are required to make this client code working. So let's actually add it to our npm. So we can actually use this WebStorm here and God. Yep. And let's go to package.json. Here we can see that we have added those two packages. And actually what I noticed is that if you install the latest version from God, you will have some issues within the code of this OAuth.js file. So actually, let's check what is the version right now in this integration starter kit for the God. Let's go to package.json, and God is here. So let's just copy this version. And if you are interested, you can always try to update this God package to the latest version, and then you'll actually you'll be able to fix this code for the latest version. But as integration starter kit uses this version, let's just use it. And right now, let's go to the Commerce index.js and write the code for fetching the Adobe Commerce data. All right, so we'll simply create a new client constant, and we'll use the get commerce of client. And as I mentioned, we need to pass options and also a logger object. And here in options, we need, and actually I will just paste it here. So we need to define those parameters. So URL, this will be the Adobe Commerce instance URL, like the base URL, of course. Consumer key, secret, access token, and token secret. So this will be taken from the integration. We need to create a new integration in our Adobe Commerce. So as you can notice, the data are coming from the params object, and as I mentioned, params contains environment variables as well. So to actually configure the environment variables, so we have the data here, we need to go to, maybe I will just copy it first, right? And firstly, we need to go to app config file, we need to define inputs, and here we need to copy it again and add $sign and then specify the name of the environment variable that is located in the env. So this means that commerce base URL will be taking the data from the env file from the commerce base URL, right? And then it will be added to the params object out of the box. So here we will need to go again to env file and define those environment variables. So we'll actually do it right now. So I've opened a new local Adobe Commerce instance that I created on my local machine. So what we need to do, we need to go to System Integrations and create a new integration for our App Builder project. So let's just name it Codexpect App Builder. And then we need to, of course, define the password and API. So for our use case, for our test purposes, we can just select all access, all permissions to all resources. Of course, on a production level applications, you need to define, of course, the scope that you are interested in, and only this integration should have access to. So once it is created, we can activate it. We need to click on the allow button, and then we have the customer keys and other tokens that we will use. So firstly, let's copy the name of our Adobe Commerce instance. Let's paste it here. And then consumer key, this will be this key, secret, token, and token secret. All right, so environment variables are set. In app config file, we also set the inputs. So if you go to index, those data, those variables will be available in the params object. And at the end, we also need to make the request to the Adobe Commerce instance. So we will use the client and get, we'll use the products endpoint. So to fetch the data about the product based on our SKU, we'll use the products, and then we simply define the params SKU, right? So this will make get request to this endpoint, and of course we need to save it to into variable, and yeah, it is promised, so it needs to be await, and then we'll just pass the whole result into body of the response of our custom action. So it should work right now, so let's test it out. Let's go to our terminal and let's run AIO app dev. So this will build our project. Let's wait for a second here. All right, we can see that there is a new action, Codexpect Commerce here added. So if we go to our Postman, and yeah, we need to select the local host, of course, and sample SKU. So let's actually go to our Adobe Commerce and let's just fetch, let's just get the product SKU that we have in our Adobe Commerce. So for example, this one. Yeah, let's copy that. Let's paste it into our Postman here, and let's send the request. All right, so we have 500 internal server errors. So let's see what's that. And here is the error message. Request error, unable to verify the first certificate. So actually my Adobe Commerce instance, this is like a local instance, so I do not have a certificate there. So probably this is the issue here. So what we can do, we can actually copy and paste environment variable into our env file. So this is like a general configuration to disable the TLS checking in our Node project. So of course this is not recommended for production environments, but for our local testing we can just simply do it. And if you have actually a normal hosted Adobe Commerce instance, this shouldn't be a problem. But if you use the local environment without the certificate, then yeah, we can just simply do it. And yeah, let's restart the application, and right now it should work correctly. So we'll actually see a warning here that the node TLS reject unauthorized environment variable is set to 0, but yeah, let's just ignore it. And if we go to Postman and send this request, we should see the data of our product. And indeed, we have the product. So we were able to fetch the data from Adobe Commerce instance by using our App Builder custom action. All right, and I want to show you one last thing here. So here we have the logs of our request. And here is the debug that we saw in the beginning of our main function, which logs the params object. So let's actually copy that and paste into our web store, and let's see what's there. So we have headers, right? So we can actually see headers by using the params object. Then we have the method of our request that was sent, and then as you see, we have the environment variables that were configured in our app.config YAML file and env, and also here we have the SKU that was passed as a JSON body into our request. So the params object contains all the necessary data, headers, body, and so on. Okay, and this was the first part of our video. Right now we will focus on the single page application, so we'll extend it and add a new view. So if we open our terminal, and if we actually open our application here, let's just confirm that. So here we will extend, we'll add a new menu item, and as I told you, we'll create a new input that will fetch the data from this custom action that we created. So let's do it. Let's switch to our project. Let's go this time to not actions, but to web src. And here, let's go to components. And firstly, let's define a new root here. So in app.js, we define the roots for our React application. So we'll do it as product. And of course, we need to create a component. So right now we do not have any component. We can actually just copy this about and just we'll rewrite it. So let's do it. Let's change the name of the product. So we are in the product.js right now. We need to change the name of this component to product. And if we right now go here, let's just make sure that this product component is imported correctly, as you can see here. And so we added a new root into our React routing. And now let's go to sidebar and let's actually create a new item in the menu. So we'll copy that and it will say, let's say product, and not to about page, but to product page. And if we go and open the application, we can see that the menu item is already here and we are actually routed to the product page. So what we need to do next, we need to actually rewrite the product component to create an input field and then fetch the data from Adobe Commerce. So we are one step closer. Let's now go to the product component, and actually before recording of this video I created the code that we will use here, so we can actually focus on the logic itself rather than creating those components from scratch. So let's just paste the code here, and of course I will explain it all here, but this will be just simpler. And of course we use the Adobe React Spectrum components, and here is the documentation page. So here you can actually search and look for all the components. So of course you can play with it, you can create your own custom code here, but just to make this video shorter, I will just paste it here and explain what we've got here. So here we return the view component with text field, which is our input for the SKU where we will enter the SKU. Then we have the button, and on a press of this button we'll execute the handle submit function, and then once we get the data from our runtime action, we'll actually render the product name. So here we define the state for the SKU, state for the submitted SKU, and this submitted SKU is actually passed to our custom hook, which is called use commerce product, and of course we'll create this hook in a second. So we pass props, we pass the submitted SKU, and here actually you can see that on the press of the button, when we use the handle submit function, the set submitted SKU is actually used to change it based on the SKU that is actually set on the text field. And in this hook, there will be actually another hook use effect that will actually look for the change in the submitted SKU, and it will automatically refresh and make the call to our runtime action. Okay, that should be clear, I believe. So let's now focus on the hook. Let's go to src directory. Let's create a new directory called hooks with a new file called use commerce product with the JS extension. I will paste the code here and what we've got here. So we have the use commerce product, which accepts props and SKU. We define the product state, which will actually hold the data of our product that we fetch from our custom action. And then we have the use effect hook, which is depending on the SKU passed from here. And as you remember, this is the submitted SKU actually passed here, right? So once there is a change of this submitted SKU, right, this use effect hook will be retriggered and the code that is here will be executed. So of course there is the action, asynchronous action, and if SKU is not empty, we'll actually execute the fetch data function. So in here we define there is a call to the Codexpect commerce action with props and also the JSON, so we only need to pass SKU. And then we have the result, which is actually set to the product, and the product state is returned then to use in our any component. And the last missing piece here is the call action function. So let's create it. Let's go to utils because the call action is imported from utils. And here we already have the action web invoke function that is used by the actions form here, but we will create actually a simpler version of it. So let's go here. I will paste the code. And here what we have the call action, which accepts props, action name and body. We require the config JSON. As you remember from previous videos, the config JSON holds the information about our runtime actions defined in our project. So here is the Codexpect commerce function that we implemented and that we want to actually use to fetch the product's data. And also in the use commerce product hook, this is configured here. So if we go again to call action, based on the actions JSON, we will actually make requests, right, to this particular endpoint to fetch the data. So we pass the body that is here, right? We pass the body, and we also need, as you see here, props to get the IMS organization and IMS token. So actually we can authorize our request. And if we get back, so props are passed from the use commerce product, right? But also props are passed to use commerce product from the product component. And here we have also props that were passed actually from the app.js, right? And to make calls to our endpoint, we need to actually define this runtime and IMS. Actually, we do not need runtime, we just need this IMS. Right, so if we just copy and paste it here, these props will be passed into our utils.js, and we need to use only props, IMS org and IMS token. So this should be enough. And right now let's try and test it if it's all working as expected. Okay, so let's rerun our application. Let's rebuild it. So let's go to our terminal. Let's run io-app-dev. And okay, here we have an error. Product.js doesn't export product. Okay, let's go to our project to product. Okay, so it should be product instead of product, of course. Let's run it again. io-app-dev. And right now we do not have any errors, so we can go and open the application. Let's go to product. And wow, it's working. So we have the field with the predefined SKU, we have the fetch product button and then the name of the product. So if we go and change the SKU and click on it, exactly, we've got a new product name. So this way, we created a fully working single page application, right? And a custom action. So that is great. And of course, it is at the beginning hard maybe to start. You can feel overwhelmed by it, but once you start working with it, it will be easier and easier. And one last thing that I wanted to mention is that I created a new repository in my GitHub space. So after each video, I will push code here, so you don't need to worry about writing this code, what we just did today. You can just simply copy and paste it from this repository into your own project. So you will have a sample code here. And of course, I will paste the link to this repository below this video. All right, we covered a lot today. I hope this helps you get started with your development. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video.